Hello everybody, it's Storm once again. Today I am going to be talking to you guys about the secondary map mechanics of the 4 competitive maps that you can find in ranked queues in PvP, that being Force of Niflhel, Legacy of the Full Fire, Battle of Kylo, and Temple of the Silent Storm. So today, like I said, just going to be looking at the secondary map mechanics and kind of going over when a good time might be to get these secondary mechanics, because I know a lot of players struggle with knowing when to go for it, and they think they know when to go for it, but it's actually a bad time to go for it. So starting out first on the Force of Niflhel here, when you start a game, after a few seconds the game starts and you get Chieftain over here and Svanir over here. For those that are new to the game, these are big bears that'll attack you if you start attacking them. They are worth 25 points each, as well as a stat bonus to your team. Now, the stat bonus isn't something people really go for. It's more or less the 25 points. Now, if you think about it, 25 points, starting the game out 25 points, you get one, go to the other side, get the other. That's a nice 50-point boost at the start of the game, right? No, that's not true whatsoever, because of the fact if you allow your team to get a 2-cap while you are just sitting with your 1 node and you're going from boss to boss, or the other way around, you're allowing them to ultimately reap more benefits of having a 2-cap in the end than you getting those extra 50 points, even on top of the very minimal stat bonus that you get. So just thinking about it like this way, especially, okay, so we'll say you're the blue team and they're the red team, right? So you send somebody to grab your home node. You send 4 people, for example, to get Chieftain. Takes you maybe 10, 15 seconds to grab Chieftain, and then an extra maybe 5, 10 seconds to get to the keep. By that time, the enemy team will have capped the keep nodes. So ultimately, they will be ticking 2 nodes for however long it takes you guys to finish the fight at keep and kill them. And if you don't kill them, then you're even at a bigger disadvantage, because not only did they have the 2-cap, but they also got the 5 points per kill, depending upon how many people you sent to that keep node. So you might say, well, Storm, what if we just send 1 guy to get Chieftain? Or what if we send just 3 guys and we send 1 guy to get keep right off the bat? Well, you might think that's a good idea. And while we do see professional teams do that, they also have somebody that goes to the midpoint and they know can hold off 3, if not 4 people for at least the amount of time it takes for you guys to get Chieftain, or if you're on the other side, get Svanir and get to that keep node. Oftentimes, if you do send somebody to that midpoint, i.e. a dagger elementalist or a guardian, if you send somebody there to do that, imagine 3, 4 people of the other enemy team killing. That it's not going to take them 30 seconds to kill them, right? If it's pro players against pro players, it's not going to take them 30 seconds to play. And we're not even talking pro play. We're talking, ranked queues or even unranked queues if you happen to get this map. So ultimately, the benefits of getting a 2-cap far outweigh that of getting Chieftain and or both, that and Svanir at the same time. So ultimately, thinking about this secondary objective, you don't really want to go for these right off the bat of the game. There are, in my opinion, 2 prime times to get these kills, right? So the first one being that if you are able to, it doesn't matter at what point in the game this happens, but if you're able to secure your home node, secure the mid node, and wipe 2, 3, 4, if not all 5 members of the enemy team from the map, or if you're like pushing them all the way back to their home point, if you see you're like the blue team, so you kill, say, 3 people at the midpoint, right? 1 guy is around the mine point and 1 guy of their team manages to get out, right? So you've pushed them all the way back over to this side of the map. They have 15 seconds of respawn, right? And it takes them quite some time to get all the way over there. That's a prime time to actually go for a boss kill, because of the fact they have 3 people on respawn. They have 2 people sitting around the mine point who wouldn't dare go all the way across the map, because they're going to get caught out by multiple members. If they get caught out by members, they're just going to make it harder for their team to get back into the game because of staggered respawning. So ultimately speaking, that would be a prime time to go for the boss. When you know where all 5 members are, whether they be dead or they're on the complete opposite side of the map, that's a really good time to go for a boss kill. The only other time I can really think of a great opportunity to go for it is when it comes down to the wire, meaning it's a very close game. Either you're 20 points away from victory, you don't have any caps, you need to just get a kill to win the game, or if it's, you know, tied 490, 490, and you're going to risk it because you think your burst players can outplay their burst players, and you're just going to go for a Chieftain Responder kill. We've seen this time after time in unranked, ranked queues, pro tournaments, all of it. So it's kind of up in the air. Sometimes you really have to. Sometimes you just want to, just to see if you can get it and make a play. That's another time to get it. But randomly throughout the game, I can't count the amount of times that players have went for Chieftain Responder, and it doesn't make any sense to do it, especially if, you know, you're getting 2 capped or you're getting 3 capped for that matter. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I have seen people dedicate the entire game to getting those, meaning they'll go back and forth and then they'll just kind of wander around the map, and then as soon as it's up, they'll go back to it. I think one time I had a guy get 6 total of Chieftain and Spawner. I'm sure it's possible to get more, but ultimately speaking, that's not a great idea. So just try and keep that in mind when you play this map next. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the second one. That is going to be Legacy of the Fullfire. If you're not familiar with this map is it's a little bit different because it has a secondary objective, which would be that it has a Lord. So each Lord is worth 150 points. Obviously, there's only one Lord per team. It only spawns, once at the start of the game, and it's located inside of this keep. So each team has their own base, or it's not really a keep, but each team has their own base. So the blue team's base is outlined right here. Red team's base is outlined right here. Each team has their 2 gates. There's a front gate, which would be here and here, and a side gate, which would be here and here, leading to the side nodes. So ultimately, each team can go for the enemy team's gate. You have to knock down a gate. It stays knocked down for the rest of the game, and then you can go for the kill onto the enemy Lord. Now, the enemy Lord is surrounded. It has 4 NPCs. 2 really contribute a lot of CC. The other 2 mitigate projectiles with their swirling winds. And the Lord has a heal, CC, and some decent attack damage. And he's pretty buffy, but he can be soloed by certain classes. But ultimately, like I said, it gives 150 points. Sometimes people. It doesn't happen as much as Chieftain Responder kills, but sometimes I hate to say it, people will go for the Lord at the start of the game. Even go for the gate at the start of the game. That's not a terrible idea to get the gate. You don't really want to get it at the start of the game. Oftentimes, the best time to go for the gate is when, say, if you're the red team, you go over to Waterfall and you kill somebody, right? You now have the enemy node. You know there's a guy respawning in 15 seconds. So it is a perfect opportunity, as long as you have the necessary eyes on Waterfall, communication from your team, or you have like a portal there, you have your mobility, lightning flash, blink, something to get back to that point in time if somebody comes from this direction to get to Waterfall. It's a good opportunity to get the gate down in case you need it later on in the game, because not only are you making good use of your time, but you're also checking if that guy who's coming off a respawn is going to come back to the Waterfall and fight you. So, he has 15 seconds to come back up. You see him through the gate, you try and finish it down, and then you follow him back to that Waterfall node to fight him once again if he decides to. If he decides not to, he's coming out of this side gate after you give it a nice 20-25 second countdown or something like that, taking a look at the clock, and you'll know that you need it elsewhere. So it's often nice to just get rid of the gate. You don't really want to push for the Lord at that point in time. A lot of times we do see players in the top tier tournaments, especially if they're playing Warrior. They'll just, if they have Rampage, they'll take down the gate, they'll just go for it at 350. The other team doesn't even know what's happening. And you can usually get it. If they're like at the mid node, you can usually get the Lord by that time, especially if you have a Rampage. So not really suggesting that, but it isn't a bad thing to do if you know your team might not win. Oftentimes you see a lot of portal plays. This one is kind of more up in the air than a Chieftain or Spawner kill in my opinion, because there's a lot of times that you can, this map times out a lot more than Force of Niflhel. So it can oftentimes just come down to points rather than getting to 500 points, and that extra 150 point boost might help you out. So it's kind of up in the air, but obviously going for it at the start of the game is not recommended. I don't see it as much anymore, but it's more or less, I think, the timing of when you want to get the gate down. And then if you really are with your team, or you feel confident about you soloing the Lord in a decent amount of time, that's always a good thing to do if you really need it as your team progresses throughout that game. So take a look at the third map in a couple of seconds here, which would be Battle of Kylo. It is the only competitive map that has a secondary objective that doesn't contribute to your points. So it is, for those of you who are new to the game, it is a trebuchet. Each team has a trebuchet on their side of the map. We'll take a look at it here in just a second. All right, here is the trebuchet. It's right over here for you. Take a closer look at it. This would be the blue team's trebuchet. Over here is the red team's. You can use movement abilities to get up through these, like Shadow Step, Blink, Lightning Flash to get up there. You can run around to use it. The trebuchet can hit all 3 nodes, meaning it can hit Windmill, Clock Tower, and Mansion. To actually get to the Clock Tower, you have to fire it once, and it has to break down the wall. There's a wall on each side, obviously, which is broken down. If you're on the other side, if say you're the red team, the second shot you hit will take down the other team's wall. So you take down both of them. It's sometimes people use it if they have classes who want to stand up on the ledge up here and attack. They'll just get a shot, maybe 2 shots off, and then they'll get off the trebuchet. It's not used as much as going for a Lord kill, going for Chieftain or Spawnier, but it has its it really does have its moments. And oftentimes you can people will come just destroy them right off the bat. They don't have to deal with it. So, like I said, trebuchets can be destroyed with damage, of course. They can also be repaired. After you kill the trebuchet, the repair kit will come up after a little bit. So if you are the red team, your repair kit will spawn over down in this little hut. If you're the blue team, your repair kit will spawn over under this little hut. And you'll pick it up and you will move all the way to your trebuchet. As soon as you touch ground on the trebuchet spot right here, it'll instantly repair it for you. And you can't use abilities while you have that trebuchet repair kit. So you can drop it, but you can pick it back up, but it despawns, if I'm not mistaken, after a set amount of time. So that secondary mechanic is, it's good, but oftentimes you will be trebbing points that don't need help. So it's really up to communication with the treb. It's really hard if you're not communicating with your team. Obviously, you can tell if people are on a node or not, but you can't really tell if it's already a 1 fight and they're just they're just cleaning up a couple members when you could be going and getting a decap or helping out another fight. So that's kind of up in the air, but it is a good mechanic that obviously doesn't contribute to points. So this map as a whole is really based around its primary objective of capturing all 3 nodes. So taking a look at the 4th map, the final one, that would be Temple of the Silent Storm. This one is not as popular. It's not used a lot in competitive tournaments. It's not used in ESL weeklies. The last time it was used was in the WTS and the WTS qualifiers, and before that was Tournament of Legends 3. So it's really used in these bigger tournaments more or less than the ESL tournaments. But take a look at this map. This map has point contributing secondary mechanics, but they're a little bit different than the other ones. They have buffs. So there are 4 buffs that spawn throughout the game's time. You have the ferocity buffs, which spawn here and here, which are right there and right there. So we'll take a look at the other side here. These buffs spawn, and my best recommendation for these buffs as a whole, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the ferocity buffs. Don't go for them unless you are bored. Meaning, if you are sitting on the mid node and you are, just trying to finish the game, you're sitting on the mid node or you're expecting respawns and you want to get ferocity because you want to get, you're kind of bored, that's about the best time to go for them, because ferocity buffs really don't contribute a whole lot. The ferocity buff gives you an extra 3 points per ferocity buff, meaning you can have up to an extra 6 when you get a stomp on the enemy team. Meaning a normal stomp of 5 points could be worth 8 or 11 points for your team. You might think that's pretty substantial, but the amount of stomps in a game, or even during the time that you have the ferocity buff, is not worth going out of your way when you could be contributing to another team fight or getting a decap or just getting a full cap defending a node, something like that, right? It's not going to make the difference that you need to allocate resources to get those buffs. So I really don't suggest getting those or worrying about those buffs. The ones you do need to worry about are the stillness buff, which spawns right on this light here, and the tranquility buff, which spawns down here, which can be accessed by going down underneath these, or you can go straight down there all the way to the tranq buff. So it's different access points. You fall down there, or you walk down here. So let's take a look at the stillness buff up top. The stillness buff doubles the amount of points you are currently getting from capture nodes. So for example, say you hold the temple node, the enemy holds gate, and altar is neutral. Okay, you cap the stillness buff, you have temple, which normally you would be ticking 1 node, but now you're going to be ticking 2 because it is worth double the amount of points. Well, another example, I guess, you have all 3 nodes, normally it'd be 3 points, but you're getting 6 from the stillness buff. So ultimately, this buff is very important. Sometimes we'll see teams fight all game for it, sometimes we won't. Sometimes people don't even remember it's up. It comes up when your timer at the top hits 11:30, 8:30, 5:30, and 2:30. So it spawns 4 times throughout the game. So it is a huge buff that you really need to pay attention to the timers for, because if you miss it, that could be the difference between winning and losing, just 1 time. I also want to say that there can be some confusion. Oftentimes, fights from the first time it spawns at 11:30 will be continuing all the way through the second time it'll spawn at 8:30, right? It's just 1 time. So if you're having a 1v1 up top on the stillness buff, also referred to the top buff, and it goes through the 8:30 and you cap it at 8 minutes left in the game, that's it. It doesn't stack there, throughout the duration of the game. You can't cap it twice, so it'll only be there once. But taking a look at the second and most important buff, I would have to say, which oftentimes isn't even captured, because if you think stillness buffs might last throughout the game, tranquility buffs most of the time will, unless you are really not paying attention. Now this buff only spawns twice. It spawns at 8:30 and 2:30 left in the game. This buff, when captured, will give your team all 3 nodes and CC the people on those on those nodes off of the point. So it'll give you full control over those capture nodes. It is very important. It can really turn the how the game ends out. And especially with paired with stillness buff, if you're able to capture both of those, that is a huge turn in events. If you are able to do that, say you're down in the game, you get a 6 cap, which would be all 3 nodes with stillness buff, taking 6 points at a time for you. That can really, really turn change how a game will turn out. So, like I said, it spawns at 8:30, spawns at 2:30. Now, a big problem with this buff is that people will either, dedicate too many resources to it, or they will forget it. So either they're just going to let the enemy team have it because they totally forget about it, or they're going to send 3, 4, if not all 5 people down to this stillness buff. If there's one thing I can recommend, especially in unranked and ranked queues, if you happen to get Temple of the Silent Storm, is that you need to keep people who are going to, it really depends on the status of the game, I think. If you really need it, you have no other way of winning, and you need that to win the game, send people down there and try and get it. That's the only thing you can really do. But if you're in a state in the game in which you don't need it, and you feel you can win in other ways, you should really consider keeping classes with high mobility and 1v1 potential up above this tranquility buff, because a lot of the time I will see teams bring their thief and their elementalist and all their classes down here, and when you need maybe a thief up top to continue to get decaps because the other classes aren't able to keep up with them. So the more mobility you have up top with the 3 capture nodes, usually the better off you are. Now, it's very situational, so I can't say that's true all the time, and oftentimes you want somebody down here to spike people down and get some kills. So it's really situational, but if you get stuck in a stalemate down here, you do not want your classes who have high mobility to be down here while the other team has high mobility up top, getting decaps, getting full caps all over the place because you can't keep up with them. So that's really something to keep in mind. This map is a hard map, I would say, to have to deal with people who aren't, you're not communicating, you're not in TeamSpeak with them or anything like that. So, I don't really recommend this map for solo play. It's hard to communicate stillness and tranquility buff unless you're spamming chat or you're spamming your pings all over the place, or making sure you're the one there, but you can't be in 2 places at once. So you really got to have your team on the same page. So this is, I would say, one of the more difficult maps as a solo player. So guys, that concludes today's segment of secondary map mechanics. I will be having more videos in the near future, so stay tuned, guys, and thank you for watching.